for joining this event, Christy Moore. So before
Thank
we start your presentation, I would like to invite you to the audience. So Christy Moore, referred to as is triple threat in personal and professional coaching, brings over 20 years of leadership experience, a master's degree in counseling, and various coaching certifications to her work. She is known for her expertise in mindset development and confidence building. Christie is recognized for her unique ability to see the greater potential in others, inspiring them to find their voice and embrace their highest selves in all areas of life. Drawing from her own experiences and insights, she guides her clients on a journey of rediscovery, helping them align their choices with their passions and purpose. Her innate ability to deeply connect with clients enables her to help them uncover fears and limiting beliefs while teaching them practical, sustainable steps towards lasting personal transformation. That was really a fantastic introduction. Yes, I can occupy this space.
Thank you so much, Melinda. I really appreciate it. And welcome everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. And actually, before I begin, I just want to say thank you to the WIN team behind the scenes. I think we can all agree that it's not a small task to put together a global summit. So give them some love in the chat, if you will, please. And thank you all again for choosing to spend your time with me today. And I am both grateful and hopeful that you will find value in our time together. And as you're getting settled in, if you haven't done so already, I invite you to grab something to jot some notes down or some reflection that may come up for you during our presentation today. And although I'm going to be doing most of the talking, I would love for all of us to get a sense of who's here in the audience today. So just take a moment and share something about yourself in the chat. Perhaps it's how long you've been working in leadership or in the industry that you're working in, what country you're viewing in from today, or what brought you here today. Anything that you would like to share at all. Remember, there are no wrong answers. And I do appreciate the kind and generous introduction that Melinda gave me. And outside all of that, I would say my favorite thing to do is actually being mom. And so, although I'm a recent empty nester, I have a handsome German Shepherd who I get to spend a lot of time with, and he is enjoying all of my attention at this point in time. So, thank you all. Just as a quick reminder, hopefully at the end of our time together, there'll be a few minutes for the question and answers. But if you have general questions throughout the presentation, the WIN team behind the scenes will be assisting to keep up with the questions in the chat. So let's start our journey together. Today, we're going to dive into the topic that really resonates maybe deeply with all of us here, or many of us here. And my intention is to open the conversation about how letting go of that relentless drive to exceed those already high standards can help unlock a more authentic and effective leadership. If you can please switch to the next slide, that would be great. I think, Melinda, you all have my slides in the background. So, and we're talking about the perfectionist trap, right? Please raise your hand or comment in the chat if you can relate to any of this. Do you ever feel stuck on tasks, trying to make everything just right? And spending hours working on presentations and tweaking every detail to ensure that they look flawless, right? Or maybe you've been caught in the never ending loop of revisions and stressing, it could have been better. That might have been me last night. And have you ever felt even paralyzed by the fear of not getting things right? I know I feel that same way. And what about your expectations of others? Have you noticed like holding unrealistic expectations and standards for those in your life, whether that's personally or professionally, right? If any of these resonate with you, you might just be a perfectionist. So, like these scenarios that highlight just a few ways that the perfectionist trap can trap, perfectionism can trap us, right? Both as individuals and leaders. And it's a term that really captures the feeling of needing to meet the impossibly high standards in one or more areas of our life, right? And for those of us who are in supervisory roles as leaders, whether it's evaluating team members or serving on hiring committees, you might often encounter this question: what is your greatest weakness or growth area? And when someone cites perfection, right, perfectionism, it's typically treated as our favorite flaw, right? And often admired and celebrated with a nod of respect, right? It's often like a badge of honor, right? And making us believe that it's this a strong sense of dedication and ambition. And yes, while it's true, perfection can indeed drive us to achieve, I think, remarkable things. Like everything or most things in our life, it also has a dark side, right? And it can create this crippling self-criticism and unrealistic expectations for ourselves and those around us, and fueling this unrelenting fear of failure, right? We convince ourselves, I think, that perfectionism is about striving for high standards, but in reality, it generates this immense pressure. And let's face it, right? The perfection isn't real. There's no such thing as perfect, right? When we pour our energy into a task that is generally like unnecessary, like more energy into that task that's unnecessary, we risk wasting precious resources, both physically and mentally, that could be better spent elsewhere. So it not only impacts our well being, but can also hinder how we show up for our teams as a leader and as a role model. So it's really crucial for us as leaders to recognize when perfectionism begins to do more harm than good. And spotting those moments can be such a game changer, allowing us to shift our focus from the unattainable ideals to this meaningful progress and genuine connection. So let's strive for excellence, right? Embracing our imperfections along the way and creating this healthier, more productive environment for both ourselves and for those that we lead. I ask you to take a moment to reflect on: how does your own experience with perfection and perfectionism show up in your leadership? Go ahead and jot it down and share it in the chat if you'd like to. So, can you go ahead and switch it to the next slide, please, Melinda? There is a significant difference between striving for excellence and chasing after perfection. Excellence is, as we know, it's about continuous growth and improvement and embracing the journey along the way, right? Perfectionism, on the other hand, it's that relentless pursuit of flawlessness and can leave us feeling paralyzed, where like good enough is like never quite enough. Perfectionism will serve to us as a self-defense mechanism, right? To shield us from shame and blame and judgment, and that nagging voice telling us that any misstep is unacceptable. And for those of us right here who are working to escape that perfectionism trap, we're starting to recognize the signs and get more comfortable with asking this one question: what am I really afraid of? And I believe it was Aristotle who said, if you don't want to be criticized, do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing, right? Yet here we are together in this arena. We're doing something, we're saying something, and we're being someone, right? It's crucial for us to remember what really matters most. It's giving our best effort, and no one can contribute what you uniquely bring to the table. And so excellence, right, invites us to take risks and innovate and embrace the fact that mistakes are simply part of the process. And as leaders, when we focus on excellence, we create this supportive environment for ourselves and our teams, allowing for the space of growth and creativity and freedom to explore ideas without this looming fear of failure, right? So again, let's celebrate the progress and learn from our missteps, and remember that it's a journey, not the destination, that truly matters. Okay. A few years ago, I was tasked with leading a team to rebrand a school. And as the deadline approached, I found myself trapped in this perfection cycle. I was meticulously scrutinizing every detail, the color scheme, the wording of the mission, the vision, the placement of images on the presentation, and spent hours tweaking things because that nagging fear that if it wasn't flawless, it would reflect poorly on me and on my team. And as I dove deeper into that minutia, right, my team started feeling the pressure, and they became hesitant to share their ideas out of fear that they wouldn't measure up to my expectations. And that's tough, right? So instead of collaborating and innovating, we found ourselves stuck in this loop of revisions and anxiety. And it was, I think, a couple weeks before the actual presentation to the community wide that I had like that aha moment, the moment of clarity. And I realized I was more concerned with avoiding this judgment than creating this something super meaningful to a community. And so I gathered the team and opened up about my struggle with perfectionism, and in talking with them, encouraged all of us to focus on excellence and reminding them that mistakes is part of the process, and that our collective creativity in that moment, we would be able to shine if we took risks. So it was interesting that that little mind shift, right, transformed the atmosphere of our team. I mean, they began sharing these bold ideas and embracing the flaws, right, that we had, that had come up earlier in the conversations that we were all worried about. And we ended up creating this beautifully brand that authentically reflected the uniqueness of the school and its mission. And of course, the presentation was a success. And more than that, it just felt like it was a celebration of our growth together. And I think what that experience taught me, and I want to share with you, is that's what excellence is about. It's about the progress and the collaborating and learning, and perfection often like stifles all of that, right? It's a reminder to us that as leaders, we can create a supportive environment where everyone feels empowered and contribute, right? And in the end, the journey we take together is what really matters. So I ask you to think about that. When is the last time that you allowed yourself to pursue excellence over perfection? Melinda, do you mind switching to the next slide, please? The cost of perfectionism. So here we are, right? We first and foremost, we know that perfectionism skyrockets our stress levels, right? We are constantly on the edge, feeling like we have to meet these impossible standards, ones that we often create for ourselves, by the way. And this stress doesn't always just weigh us down; it seeps in through our thoughts and our behaviors and feelings of self doubt. And so when we question our abilities, it clouds our judgment and impacts our decision making. And instead of feeling confident in our choices, we start to hesitate and second guess ourselves at every turn. Can any of you relate to that? This paralyzing fear of getting it wrong, it creates this vicious cycle. And we as perfectionists become so consumed with the idea of avoiding mistakes, and that we end up freezing and getting and unable to take action. So it's important for us, as leaders, when that to recognize when that fear takes root in us, it inevitably is going to trickle down to our teams, right? And suddenly what we've created is this, transformed our workspace into a pressure cooker, if you will, right? Where people feel that they can't really express their ideas or take risks, and they start to worry about any misstep, and that might lead to criticism or even worse, judgment. So think about your own leadership. How might your perfectionism be influencing your team's morale and performance? And I know it's a tough question, but it's an important one, because when our team members feel afraid to contribute openly, we miss out on the diverse perspectives and innovative ideas. And the very essence of collaboration gets stifled. So instead of this vibrant exchange of creativity, we find ourselves in the culture of silence where everyone is too afraid to speak up. So as we reflect on the costs of perfectionism, again, I invite you to commit to like fostering this atmosphere where it's safe to grow and learn and make mistakes. And by prioritizing, excellence over perfection, we're going to create a much more authentic and wonderful creative space to work together. So I'd like to shift to the conversation to maybe something more powerful, authentic leadership. Melinda, can you please switch the slide as well? Um, when you hear the words authentic leadership, what comes to mind? And feel free to share that in the chat if you want to. What comes to mind for me are leaders who understand themselves and they're comfortable showing both their strengths and their weaknesses and embracing their humanity, right? Their transparency kind of fosters this environment where team members feel safe to feel and and do the same, right? It's about being real and relatable and allowing our teams to see that we are also, in fact, human and in this together. So I think this authentic type of leadership builds trust and encourages open communication and fosters deep connections with the team, right? And when we lead authentically, we're demonstrating that it's okay to be human. And we set the tone for vulnerability, and it's not weakness, it's actually a strength. And it's crucial for everyone to understand that mistakes are part of the natural growth, and acknowledging our own missteps along the way can actually inspire others to embrace their own journeys. So if you think about it, people want to follow a leader who's real, not perfect, right? And authenticity isn't about presenting this polished facade all the time. It's about being genuine and relatable and sharing our experiences, both the highs and the lows, so that our team can connect with one another on a much deeper level. And I ask you, when's the last time that you have actually felt inspired with someone who's infallible? Right? Probably can't think of that, right? Because it's those leaders who share their struggles and triumphs with us that resonate most with us. So allow yourself that grace as well, right? They show up with the success that isn't, it's not about the accolades, it's about the journey and the lessons and the impact that we have on the people along the way. So as authentic leaders, let's create spaces where our teams can express their ideas freely and knowing that they won't be judged for their imperfections. And in doing so, we can inspire this new wave of leadership, one that actually values connections and kind of embraces this beautiful messiness of being human being, right? Melinda, please share the next slide. This may sound counterintuitive in leadership, embracing imperfection, but it's where the real magic happens, my friends. When we embrace imperfection and take risks and knowing that we might fail, right? And we prioritize progress over perfection, we unlock the potential for learning and growth in ways that far surpass any kind of spending an extra hour to make sure a presentation is just right. How many of you have heard of the 80-20 method? It states that 80% of results can actually be achieved with just 20% of our efforts, which is a powerful reminder, right? We don't need to chase perfection to achieve meaningful outcomes. So let's keep that in mind, right? Because perfection done is better than perfect, right? Perfectionism is it's an illusion and it can paralyze us. And as leaders, we often feel the pressure to get everything right. And it's a reminder to embrace the beauty of imperfection, which allows us to focus on progress. And perfectionism, it tends to, I think, or perfectionists, we tend to procrastinate out of fear of failure. So let's be true. The truth is doing the job to the level needed isn't just sufficient, it's really essential. So celebrate those small victories along the way, because a finished task is far better than a perfect one that's never completed, right? And let's remember, perfectionism, it's subjective, right? And it's often unattainable. And what you perceive as perfect might look differently to someone else, right? And studies show that accepting our imperfections lead us to greater satisfaction and well-being. by acknowledging that that perfection just doesn't exist, right? We can shift our focus to the journey from point A to point B, and allows the to direct our energies to what fully matters, which is really about learning and growing and supporting each other. And in the realm of leadership, when we create this safe space for mistakes and we foster this environment that encourages resilience and, innovation, we are inviting collaboration because our team members are going to feel safe and contribute to whatever it is that we're doing. So you might be able to think about a time whether you went or when your team learned something invaluable from a mistake. Those moments are often where growth happens, and they remind us that every misstep is an opportunity for development. So I challenge us, right, to embrace imperfections as strengths. And by doing so, we are enhancing our leadership. We're also empowering our teams to create a culture of trust. And so, and again, that's where the magic lies, right? When everyone feels free to be authentically be themselves. I encourage you, if you can go to the next slide. Um, how does perfectionism, how do we overcome perfectionism and lead with authenticity? So, it's one powerful concept, my friend, and it comes down to self-compassion, which means being kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly, giving yourself grace just as you would give somebody else, maybe instead of berating yourself, you're not achieving, for not achieving some ideal, recognizing that we're all in this human and imperfectional part of the journey, right? Learn to set realistic expectations for yourselves, right? And for your teams, because we're often overworked and pushing our beyond what's necessary. And it's really crucial to take that step back and assess, where are we investing our energy, and asking, will the world end if it isn't perfect? And I'm going to tell you the answer is probably no, right? It's a simple question, but it can help put things into perspective and alleviate some of that pressure. Perfectionism, it can tend to narrow our focus and lead to obsessing over minute details. So again, I encourage you to take that step back and look at the overall goals and bigger pictures. And this perspective shift will help reduce some of those pressures and also highlight maybe what truly matters, right? When we're thinking about relieving, taking some stress breaks and delegating to our team and trusting them, even if they're going to make mistakes, they're going to learn from those mistakes, because every leader, every business has encountered challenges that I promise you have ultimately shaped their success. So break free from the perfectionism. It's not about lowering our standards. Let's get that clear, right? It's about adopting a healthier, more realistic approach to our goals, right? Embracing our journey, accepting those imperfections, and reminding ourselves that you are more than enough just as you are, and strive for progress, not that perfection. So again, I invite you to take on these, create that space and consider these ideas as a possibility to help model authenticity and self-compassion, to create a really strong team that feels empowered and willing to work together, because that, my friend, is where true leadership lies. Next slide, please, Melinda. Um, just asking you to just take this moment, kind of think about your own personal perfectionist tendencies and how they might manifest in your leadership. There's one small step that you can do, whether it's your micromanaging or you have these high standards for and unrealistic expectations of others on your team that's leading to stress and disengagement. One small step that you can do is to let go of that perfectionism and embrace the authenticity. Is to maybe you can celebrate, right, team members idea, even if it's not fully polished, or allowing yourself to delegate a task, right, and trust the team to handle it in their own unique way. So I encourage you to write down some reflections, and even share those if you want to in the chat. And let's move on to some takeaways from today that are really going to be really important. And how do we, really let go of perfection and embrace that authenticity? And remember, we don't need to be flawless to be effective leaders, right? In fact, it's our unique qualities and genuine selves that inspires others. That authenticity fosters true connection, allowing us to build those strong relationships. And remembering that mistakes are not mean doesn't mean failure. They're valuable learning opportunities. Encouraging your team members to take those risks and innovate, that's really, again, where that juicy magic happens. And when we as leaders model this, what we're doing is we're setting the tone for our teams and sharing our challenges and uncertainties. And it only humanizes us as leaders, and it encourages this open communication. And when your team sees that happening and you're being open to the struggles, they're feel more comfortable in sharing theirs, I promise you. And as we move forward, I ask you and invite you to commit to these principles by letting go of the need for perfection, embrace the authentic selves, and fostering a culture of growth and leading to transparency, which really can create a powerful and supportive atmosphere for your teams. And one final thought, you can go to the last slide for me, please, Melinda, is that perfection is not a destination and it never will be. It's an elusive ideal that can distract us from what truly matters. And instead of authenticity, authenticity is the compass that will guide you towards your goals and help you navigate the complexities of leadership. Embrace who you are and allow your unique qualities to shine through. I do thank you all for being here and your willingness to reflect and grow. And I hope that you take some insights from our discussion today. If anyone wants to dive deeper into these topics, your journey matters, and I would love to just be part of that. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you again for your participation and your openness today. I'm happy. Be well. I'm happy to answer questions if we have some. Hi, Melinda. I was kind of rushing towards the end because I thought that my time was up. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christy. It was really a fantastic speech. You drew the audience today completely. So, yes, you can see the comments, right? There are a lot of hearts from the audience. I really got inspired. So, yes, we do have a question. So, I just picked the best question for you. So, what do you believe is important to be understanding and not put too much pressure on students?
too much pressure on students. Was that it? Oh
Yes.
goodness. Such a great question. And I feel like I was talking with a teacher, just recently, and that teacher said, I had to put myself back in the space of what it felt like to be a student myself. And I realized that I was coming with these expectations, right? And pressuring the student to perform at a level they weren't quite ready. And I think being able to connect with them and really take that pause back, right? And partner with them, right? Just like we're partnering with our team members, right? And it's being able to learn from one another and allow the space for breathing and checking for understanding, right? Because I was like feeding lots of information to you in this moment that we had together. But if we were sitting here talking together, it would have been a much slower conversation. And I encourage you to challenge or to slow down the conversation and get to know who they are, what's happening, and really just encouraging a partnership. So great question. Thank you so much. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, definitely. We really got a very good answer from you, Christy. Thank you so much for joining this Virtual Summit 2024 and
Absolutely.
sharing your presentation with the global conferences and inspiring the women who are attending from all over the world. So yes, keep encouraging other speakers sessions as well by joining and post your questions. So please do join other speaker session. Thank you and bye
Thank you all
bye.
so much. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.